The story is being related just for the sake of it.
You have to speak louder.
Is it being just for the sake of it being a funny story? Okay, it's called The Bad Snake. So, by the way, this is from a book. If you have not heard of this book, it is. Have you heard of Ajahn Brahm? Yes. Well, this is his. I don't know how many translated into how many languages. A bestseller, Opening the Door of Your Heart, which is a series of short stories which are short but teach you something quite profound, and they're very funny at times, including this one. So it's called The Bad Snake. So the final snake tale in this book is an adaptation of an old Buddhist Jataka story. It shows that to care does not always mean to be meek, mild, and passive. Say that again. It shows that to care does not always mean to be meek, mild, and passive. So, a bad snake lived in a forest outside a village. He was vicious, malicious, and mean. He would bite people just for fun. His fun, that is. When the bad snake became advanced in snake years, he began to wonder what happens to snakes when they die. All his hissing life he had spat scorn on religion and those snakes that, in his opinion, were gullible and susceptible to such nonsense. But now he was interested. Not far from the snake's hole, on top of a hill, lived a holy snake. All holy people live on the summit of a hill or mountain, even holy snakes. It's the tradition. One never hears of a holy man living in a swamp. Anyway, one day, the bad snake decided to visit the holy snake. He put on his raincoat, dark glasses, and hat, so his friends wouldn't recognize him. Then he slithered up the hill, uphill to the monastery of the holy snake. He arrived during the middle of a sermon. The holy snake was sitting on a rock with hundreds of snakes listening with rapt attention. Bad snake slithered to the edge of the throng, close to an exit, and began to listen. The more he listened, the more it made sense. He started to become convinced, then inspired, and then finally converted. After the sermon, he went up to the holy snake, tearfully confessed the many sins of his life, and promised from now on he'd be a totally different snake. He vowed in front of Holy Snake never to bite a human being again. He was going to be kind. He was going to be caring. He was going to teach other snakes how to be good. He even left a donation in the box on the way out. When everyone was looking, of course. Although snakes can talk to snakes, it all sounds like one and the same hiss to human beings. Bad Snake, or formerly Bad Snake, was unable to tell the people that he was now a pacifist. villagers would still avoid him, even though they began to wonder about the Amnesty International badge he wore so prominently on his chest. Then, one day a villager, distracted by a song on his Walkman, danced right past Bad Snake, and Bad Snake didn't strike. He just smiled religiously. From that time on, the villagers realized that Bad Snake was no longer dangerous. They would walk right past him as he sat cross-coiled in meditation outside his hole. Then some naughty boys from the village came to tease him. "Hey, you slimy creep," they jeered from a safe distance. "Show us your fangs, if you've got any, you oversized worm. You're a wimp, a cream puff, a disgrace to your species." He didn't like being called a slimy creep, even though there was some truth to the description. Or an oversized worm. How could he defend himself? He had vowed not to bite. Seeing that the snake was now passive, the boys grew bolder and threw stones and clods of earth. They laughed when a stone hit. The snake knew that he was fast enough to bite any of those boys before they could finish saying World Wildlife Fund. But his vow prevented him. So the boys came close and started hitting him over the back with sticks. The snake took the painful beating, but he realized that in the real world you had to be mean to protect yourself. Religion was nonsense after all. So he slithered painfully up the hill to see that fake of a snake and be released from his vow. A holy snake saw him coming, all battered and bruised, and asked, "What happened to you?" "It's all your fault," Bad Snake complained bitterly. "What do you mean it's all my fault?" protested the holy snake. "You told me not to bite. Now look what's happened to me. Religion might work in the monastery, but not in the real world." "Oh, you stupid snake," Holy Snake interrupted. "Oh, you foolish snake. Oh, you are an idiot snake. It's true that I told you not to bite, but I never told you not to hiss, did I? Sometimes in life, even saints have to hiss to be kind. But no one needs to bite. The end.
Thank you.
Say a few things. Well, this is something that I have trouble with because, we peacemakers, I'm a peacemaker. You don't want to say things that are uncomfortable, isn't it? We don't like to upset people. You know they're not going to like to hear it, so you don't say it. And so, sometimes we avoid rocking the boat. We avoid saying things that are unpleasant. And that's not the best course of action. So this story helps me because there's a difference between hissing and biting. We assume that if you're saying something, it's going to be a bite, that it's going to hurt someone. But if you are clear in your intention, clear in, and have courage as well. Clearing in your intention that you actually want to help the situation, regardless of how that person is going to jump up and down when you say something, then you have the courage to, yes. But it takes wisdom to know when is the right time, and that person's reaction is only temporary. They're not necessarily, it's worth it. It's worth it. Okay, that's my little reflection.
And taking from there, like the Buddha also said, right, sometimes even he too has to speak things that may be in the short term painful for the long term benefit. Sometimes in the short term to say no is very important, because sometimes in the short term we say yes to things we know is going to have bad consequences in the long run for yourself and other persons, right? But just because we can't hurt the feelings, or just because of our own desires or whatever it is, sometimes because the short-term pain is so much, we don't say the right thing. And the right thing sometimes is painful. But the Buddha says this specifically, I can't give the reference, but it is in the suttas that he specifically said that it is important, and it is actually the kind thing to do, right? It is kind thing to do, because by doing that you actually stop the other person from making long-term more unbeneficial things, both for themselves and for you, and for their karmic baggage as well. It's much better that you actually explain, get over that difficulty, but in the long term it's going to be better. But it's really hard to do, like Venerable said, for various reasons. It is difficult. And this is also kind of like our human nature as well. In another sutta, again the sutta number I can't remember, but there was an elephant trainer called Pesa. I may have mentioned this before as well, but it's quite an important thing to really understand about human beings. So not to feel bad, but also to understand our weaknesses and strengths, so that we can, improve ourselves as needed. So this elephant trainer, when came to visit the Buddha asked him, Pesa, how do you train these wild elephants to do all the work? Because at the time of the Buddha, they were the back horse, right? They did a lot of work, but they were just wild elephants. And elephants are quite dangerous, and they can, kill you instantly. But how do you train them? And Pesa, the elephant trainer, said, oh, Bhante, training elephants are quite easy, because when I walk them from one city to the next one, they show themselves. I can understand which elephant is intelligent, which elephant is not that intelligent, which one is the stubborn one, which one is the more kind and obedient one, which one is strong, which one is weak, which one is healthy, which one is not healthy. So when I know the nature of the elephant, our family line over centuries have developed many different techniques to apply to the different kind of elephant, so I can train them. And then he said, but Bhante, how do you train human beings? Because human beings, on the other hand, they think one thing, but they open their mouth and say something completely opposite even, and then go ahead and do something yet again different. So they think one thing, say something else, and do something completely different. This is human. You all are shaking head and agreeing, because we know that this is true of ourselves and others, isn't it? This is a really important factor to remember. And also, this is a very important point where we can pay attention when we are doing it, and when we see others doing it, where we are coming from. Sometimes it's coming from kindness, like it is really hard to see when we say something which we really want to, knowing that the other person might not like it or get hurt, or it might be because of our own ego, not wanting to be the person, the troublemaker, or wanting to be whoever, the peacemaker or the troublemaker or the whatever it is, we also have our own identity and who we want to be rather than doing the right thing. So many reasons, and there might be danger, there might be so many reasons why we do it, yet it is important to check why we do this and try as much as possible to align, to becoming honest, becoming a straight person. It's one of the qualities, right? Ujucha, so ujucha. So upright, straightforward and upright person is a very important quality. But when we are not able to say what we do and do what we say, for example, not a straightforward person, right? Not somebody with integrity. And when we don't live our life with integrity, our mind is actually bent. It's dark, it's not upright. And it is not in a state able to meditate. Because there is a bit of regret and remorse or something that is unsettling because you have not been completely truthful. Yet again, sometimes it is challenging to be upright, truthful. So it's finding that balance, or saying what you need to say in a way that is good. So this is where the Buddha has given really beautiful instructions. And this again, I'm extremely sorry for, this is the thing about straight away asking for a topic and talking freelance. I can't give the sutta references, but they are again in the suttas. And 5 things to check before you speak. So, because this is about communicating right? So what you think is what you want to communicate. It is that problem that stops us from communicating exactly how you want to communicate. So to check that whether it is the right time. In the sutta it doesn't come up the right place, but I suppose we can all agree that finding the right place is also important, isn't it? There's a time and place for various different communication. So we have to find the right time, that is most important. And what is the right time? The right time can be many things, but at least not at a time when you are emotionally triggered. That's the wrong time. Impulsively talking, responding or reacting, in fact you can't respond, what you do is reactions. So impulsive, if your emotions are high, wrong time. If the other person's emotions are high, also wrong time. If you and them are tired, also the wrong time. And there could be many other things related to the issue that you want to talk, what has just happened, other build-ups. So it's not going to be easy, but if you don't do those conversation at the right time, it's as if it's better to go and talk to a tree, because it won't be heard. Nothing useful will come out from that communication. Isn't that the case when somebody speaks to us in a way that is either disrespectful, or if they speak to us when we are so tired, or when we are really emotional or sick, then we can't listen as well. We don't hear what they say, or even if we heard, we don't want to sort of do what they ask or whatever, sometimes it's how it is. So what is the right time is very important. So having patience and finding the right time if you want to get something useful out of the communication. So finding that right, the next one is also to see whether what you're going to communicate is that true. Because there's so much misinformation, disinformation. Maybe what you're about to say is actually not based on truth. Maybe it's a lot of, other things that's not necessary then to communicate. So find out whether you're communicating something that is true. Third one is also really, really important. Is that communication going to be beneficial, at least to one person, but hopefully to the other person as well as for many? Because do you remember or recall at times people say things have passed long ago, now there's nothing much can be done. But you just still say, just so you know, I'm just letting you know, kind of thing, but there is no benefit. Sometimes it is beneficial because you can learn from a mistake, then that's all right. But other times we do it just to sort of the what is beneath it is ill will and negativity. You want to sort of hurt the other person or put the other person down, or your ego wants to sort of show you're on top or something like this, right? These kind of communications has no benefit. It's just more like coming from a sense of self, sense of ego, rather than of any benefit. So again, not useful. So right time and place. Is it true? Is it beneficial? Next one, gentle speech. So how do you communicate? Now this is also really, really important. So this is the hissing. So not biting, hissing. Is that, how do you say it? You know, there's so much available information about non-violent communication, right? It is how you phrase your sentence. You can just, usually when we are emotionally triggered, if we are hurt by somebody, you'd say, you said this, you did that, and it was so terrible, I felt so bad, and this and that and the other. And the way you speak, the tone of your voice, the way you structure the sentence makes the person a victim, a bad victim, like really, really terrible person. And when you try to do that, they also take up their guns and try to shoot back at you, and there is no conversation after that. Nobody's hearing, nobody's listening. It's just a big war that happens. But rather you can communicate the same thing. Doesn't mean that you just have to be a doormat and allow people to walk all over you and do all of these things that are hurtful or harmful. You can communicate at the right time, when they are calmed down, when you are calmed down, in a way that is, the other time when you did like this, this is how I felt. This is how I felt, and it might be better if it is not like that, or it was a bit difficult for me. Is it possible? Maybe it was difficult for you, or maybe whatever. It's a different way of saying the information. So you still communicate your difficulty and indicate that was not great. But this is just one example, but it's difficult, with difficult people and difficult situations, but you can always find ways. I'm not an expert on this subject, but just pointing that there's a lot of information about nonviolent communications and how to structure your sentence and present your thing. So that is learning to be hissing. So if you are successful, then actually it won't be too bad. It won't be as bad an outcome as we would think. So we may be able to communicate quite close to how we feel and what we want to communicate, rather than out of fear or out of our ego or out of something else, communicating something opposite to what we actually want to say. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Have you catch yourself doing that? I certainly have. Mm-hmm. This happens, and especially when it's very quick, very hard. When you want to say yes, you say no. When you want to say no, you say yes. So this is the thing, and that is why then you go ahead and do something else, because even though you said you will do it, you can't really do it, so you do something else. So it's problematic, isn't it? It is difficult. So in this story, actually, it was quite a powerful story. It actually has answers to a lot of the things that you always bringing up. Yeah, Buddhist suffering. If you hold Dhamma in the wrong side, it's like holding Dhamma from, like holding the snake from the tail. It can turn around and bite you. Usually, there is no Buddhist suffering. There is just suffering. Yeah, that is common to anybody. But some of the people, if they don't understand right view properly, or the Dhamma properly, and don't know how to apply it properly, then it comes and bites you, and that you can call Buddhist suffering. The snake had some, right? It's very obvious, the Buddhist suffering, the religion, the disappointment, yeah? I don't think I have to address that any more than that. It's right there, yeah? And then about the mindfulness in difficult and how to deal with it. You can't do it when you are in the middle of problems. It's already too late. So that one you have to let it go. Because that's the nature of our mind. When the mind is tired, when the mind is having too many things going on, it's not going to be able to have enough energy. You can talk about techniques, you can talk about, you can give lectures, you might be even the expert on the subject. But if the mind doesn't have that peace, if the mind doesn't have the energy, you can't apply yourself, the technique. So pre-preparation, that is why it's a gradual path. It's to be practiced every wakeful moment, taking care of yourself. So you are preparing yourself for that difficult time. Whether it is a difficult time or whether it is your death. All of those things, right? You have to be prepared. So how do you prepare? How do you prepare is by building up our mental energy. How do we bring up our mental energy? And there is no Dhamma talk goes by without me mentioning these things, because I have realized that many people know Dhamma so much. Yeah, we know so many techniques. We've been practicing also for a long time, but sometimes we don't talk about the really important yet, which looks like the small, like the baby steps or the primary school stuff. But sometimes we can't skip that step, and that is bringing up joy from being a generous person, like having an open heart, kind enough to listen to somebody, kind enough to be able to give your time, yeah, kind enough and generous enough to help out at a time. You know how selfish the modern world is? It's all about me, me, and me, no time for anybody else. And that is very draining, and that takes away a lot of energy, and that is because of my selfish concern. We also have so much mental energy being harmed. Yeah, and that is when we get very exhausted, very tired. A mind like that is not going to have mindfulness. Mindfulness is not with willpower. Yeah, that's the wrong way of applying mindfulness. Some people try to think, oh, I got to be mindful, and I got to be mindful. And what they do is they get stressed, not mindful, get stressed, and their ego and everything, and they beat themselves up. This is not how you become mindful. You become mindful by becoming still, yeah, allowing to become peaceful, and also building up that mental energy. So before we are able to do that, we need some credit. So that is where generosity comes in. So generosity, if done in the right way, brings a lot of joy to your heart. Little acts of kindness bring so much joy, right? Even opening the door to somebody, just a smile, just a beautiful compliment. Isn't it nice? Simple things like that. If you do more, you have a good mental energy. Something I say all the time as well, like, are you very generous with your compliments, or are you stingy with your compliments? When was the last time you gave a compliment to somebody? On the other hand, are you very generous with your complaints, or are you stingy with your complaints? Easy to complain about things, right? Very easy. It's a bad habit. And as you complain, what happens to your mind? Watch this, yeah? Watch this. The mental energy goes down. So when a complaining, fault-finding mind, when the energy has gone down, we're not able to apply the information we know. So especially, we have to know that our lives are always like this, right? There are good times, and we are going to have to face challenges. This is inevitable. This is part and parcel of being human, or even for animals, they also have problems. Yeah, in samsara, we get challenges. So we have to be able to face them skillfully, because if not, double, triple trouble, right? One problem and we say the wrong thing, no mindfulness, driven by habit, driven by instinct, emotionally triggered, we say bad things that are not helpful, and the problem becomes so bad. It's easy to break up trust. It's easy to break up a relationship that has been for many years. Very easy, with a matter of few minutes, with a couple of words done at the wrong time, with the wrong kind of conversation, it can happen. But to make up that relationship, to build up that trust, takes another long, long time. Yeah, it's worth rather make up and break up and put on so much energy. Be prepared. So this is why we are embarked on this spiritual journey. Of course, our end goal is enlightenment. For those of you who want to get enlightened, not everybody knows what enlightenment is and have no interest, yet there's more things to be done and more suffering to be had, or rather experience to be had if you want. In that way, in life, that's okay. But still, there are many benefits in this spiritual journey, right? So one of them is to stay out of trouble or minimize it, or to be prepared so that there's less work. So more work beforehand, but the right kind of work. So starting with a generosity. Second one is virtue. Like being good feels good is really in nutshell sila for you, like virtue or morality. Is that true? Being good feels good? And why are we not being good? Sometimes, right? Sometimes we snap back, says the wrong thing, does the wrong thing. Why? We forget that, right? And being bad feels bad afterwards immediately. We know what our mindset's like after that. When the wrong word went out, the wrong action happened, we know what it's like. So again, that's part of not having that right view. Yeah, so slowly, when we build this up, being good feels good, again, mental energy comes up. So when you have built up mental energy throughout the day, then you can actually meditate. You can sit, and your sit, even if it is a short sit, is a bit more efficient because you have taken care of your mind throughout the day. It hasn't drained out energy with negativity, ill will, fault finding, problems, arguments, comparisons, whatever it is. Yeah, all these not helpful ways of thinking and overthinking and planning. So when you are not like that and you've taken care of your mental sila, mind, this is so important to look after our mind. When we've had enough energy, then mind is naturally mindful. Yeah, when we have the energy, there is mindfulness. And when it is there, it is not difficult to deal with any situation. Much better, much easier. You have much more resilience. You have much more right view. So it is something that you have to build up constantly. Being prepared. Like the scouts thing, be prepared. Yeah, this is what it is like. We have to be prepared because we don't know what's around the corner. Yeah, we don't know what's around the corner. One of the aunties who came all the way from WA to be with us, to help us, to be our driver and look after us. She's quite older, but she's like can-do kind of older lady. Came to look after us for 2 months. And then recently, just last week, like 10 days ago, she was just diagnosed with cancer.
Oh.
Yeah, so just like that, she's in full good form, doing all of these things, just so suddenly. Yes, so suddenly. So very suddenly. So this is how it is. So we don't know. It could be health, it could be our job, it could be our finance, it could be our partner, it could be our anything can just go wrong just like that. And we need to be ready at that time. Otherwise, that is the time we're going to make so many mistakes, and then we have to be the owner of those karma, right? Whatever intentional actions we do by body, speech and mind, we are the owner. Yeah, karma is our inheritance. Amasakomi, isn't it? All of those things go together. So therefore, it is really important to see, just bringing up that idea of difficult times and how helpful having mindfulness is, and how unhelpful and how difficult it is not to have mindfulness and driven by habit and instinct. We go into so much trouble and difficulty. It gives us a lot of incentive to try our best to maintain it. But mindfulness, again I'm emphasizing, is not done through willpower. It's through wisdom power. Yeah? It comes from understanding right view. So you need to learn the teachings, slowly apply them, internalize them. We've spoken about some of these. It's a whole path, yeah. But when the right view starts to grow, when you also build up your mental energy, when you are able to meditate also, even a little bit is better than waiting for when everything is over and I go on my long retreat. That is not going to happen. Before you go on your long retreat, you might be dead, right? So therefore, if you can meditate 10 minutes, do that. Yeah? And having no time is not an excuse. Now, if your best friend calls you on the phone, you chat for about half an hour. Where did you have that time? Yeah? If you go to the shopping mall and met somebody, or you have an argument with somebody, you have even 45 minutes, not half an hour, for an argument to prove your point, right? Where did you have that time? So what is important? You have time. You have so much time in the day. So not having time is no excuse. And if anything, this is important. Because when you are a more peaceful, calm person, you are, first of all, benefiting yourself. Because it's easy to live with yourself. Because you are able to apply yourself much better. I mean, we won't be perfect. We will do silly things. All of that will happen because we are not yet enlightened, but less. Yeah. So we also know we are trying our best. So therefore, we feel good. It's that feel-good feeling inside of us. So the first person who benefits is oneself. But of course, when you are mindful and doing the right thing, you are also easy to live with for other people. So it's the best gift you can give, not the gift that you buy with money and do with everything else. Being a good, kind, nice person to be with is actually the best gift you can give anybody. So you are doing that as well. And overall, progressing on the path. So since I don't know whether it addressed everything, but there are lots of stuff, and this is also part of how to prepare for going on a retreat. It's not like you do a crash course just like that, but it is more like a long-term plan. However, there are some things that you can do. So this is about this ujjuka dikti, straightening your mind, brightening up your mind, which we have to do from time to time. Not only before going on a long retreat, even before your every meditation sit. This is very important. You just don't sit with however way the mind has been. Just finish, this is my time, 6 o'clock comes, I got to sit, and you just sit. That's not the way to meditate. That's not the way to prepare. Because our minds in most of the time, in day-to-day life, is not very straight. It's a bit bent. It's also the depressed mind, domanassa, yeah? The minds are, to whatever degree, a bit dark, a bit bent, a bit depressed and down. So can't meditate with a mind like that. Yeah, so how do you straighten it up? There are techniques. So this is what somebody can do. If they're going to go on retreat, then start now straightening up the mind a bit more. Again, generosity and virtue goes in. But also there are meditations that you can do called anusati meditations. These are those reflections. So you can do reflections on, the traditional ones are about the qualities of the Buddha, the qualities of the Dhamma, that's the teachings, and enlightened other monastics. But something that is very applicable to anybody, whether you are new to Buddhism or not a Buddhist or not much, but anyway you want to brighten up your mind, is recalling your generosity. Yeah, if you have been even done one act of generosity in your entire life, remember that and say how wonderful it was to be able to have done that. And I'm sure each one of you have done many things. And you never recollect because you think, oh, never mind, I did that, that's nothing. You just always say, that was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was good. It's nice to remember, yes, I only had this much to do. I could only do this much, but I did that. And that's important. And you don't know how much benefit that would have been for somebody. Yeah, maybe one word. Maybe, you gave them 2 minutes. Sometimes it's incredible what people come and tell you. That time you gave me 2 minutes. And that meant the whole world for me. That saved my life, maybe to somebody. You don't know what happened to the person, but you know that you did that. Yeah? So it is important to remember your generosity. uplifts your mind, yeah? And also your virtues. So if you're being reasonably moral, in person with integrity, reasonable is the right word because we can't be perfect. We can be unless if anybody is extreme winner or above. Like the first stage of enlightenment, they are perfect in their conduct and virtue. But if not, then we can't be perfect. We can be only reasonable. Reasonable, then you can remember that. And remembering being a good person again uplifts our mind. What is our normal trend? 1 or 2 or 3 bad things we have done, we focus on it. Yeah? Emphasize it, enlarge it, and that is the starting point of depression, I think. I mean, I'm not an expert, there's an expert on the audience about depression, but I suppose it is that when we sort of focus and get into a tunnel vision into the bad things is one way of putting the mind down. Instead, look at the many good things from our lives. Many things that we have done well and right, and that is important. So especially before going on a retreat, it is important to take some time to focus on all the good things you have done. So again, it straightens and brightens your mind. Ujjukaditti, yeah? So these are a few things, I suppose. And when it comes to Buddhist cosmology, just to make it full, completely, the snake had that idea. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you, Venerable. So gentle, I get carried away. The last one is really important. You want to say the last one?
The mind of loving kindness.
Loving kindness, yes. Coming where you are coming from. The fifth one before you have a conversation. So we spoke about the right time. We spoke about whether it's being truthful, whether it's beneficial, and speaking gently. And then it goes to where is it coming from? If you get this right, all the other 4 will very likely be right also. Yeah. So and this is having affection in your heart. These days I like to use the word affection for some reason. Sometimes when you say metta, I don't know whether you understand it. It's a Pali word. Sometimes it's called loving kindness, loving friendliness. There's books written about it. Many Dhamma talks of a variety. But sometimes I used to get confused on, do I have metta or not metta? Is this metta or is that metta? What is metta? But when you say affection, simple, right? A simple affection that you have when you see a little kid or a little puppy dog going on the road, you have a really nice warmth coming up in your heart, and you want them to be safe, you want them to be well, that kind of very beautiful feeling. That's actually, I feel, is the actual metta. That beautiful feeling of affection. How are you going to have affection to your difficult person? That's probably what's going on in your head, right? Because you have to have this difficult communication with this difficult person, right? So how are you going to have affection for that? This is where we need to train. Yeah. So everybody, there are people who are probably completely bad, but they're very rare in the world. And they are probably with some kind of very severe mental health illness. Like most ordinary people are not really all bad. They might have a lot of bad things, but never all bad. Even the Hitler, right? He did terrible things, but he loved his mother. He wrote nice poems about his mother, right? Is that true? Yeah, I mean, that's a nice side. I don't know, this is what I hear. But anyway, I don't know whether it's true or not. But, I hear these kinds of stuff about people. So there are people who are bad, but most people in your life, I suppose, who are difficult people, if you really look at them, would also have some good qualities that you can have some respect for. It's just our ego doesn't want to see it. Yeah, our ego wants to only focus on their bad and put them down, and I'm better and they're really bad. Is that true? Is this how you feel sometimes, right, people? But if you really open your heart and really look at this difficult person or bad person in your life, they have something good. Yeah, so it is again making our heart better to be able to see the goodness of that other person and build up a little bit of affection in your heart or kindness in your heart. At the very least, at least some equanimity.
And to be born as a human being, you had to be good at some point.
Yeah, exactly, isn't it? Exactly.
And also the point of self-forgiving is also very important.
Absolutely.
Because we blame ourselves endlessly, we like to, but we also have to forgive ourselves. If you did something wrong, you forgive and try not to repeat it and do it better, that's all.
Yeah, no, it is important. So there are many things that we need to consider, and then we will be able to, it's a big ask, but it is important. If you want to have if you want to be out of that difficult situation, make progress, not go downwards, backwards, then we have to do some work. And a lot of that work is in our own heart. Would you like to add something to this?
No, it's beautiful. No, it's enough.
No, yeah.
You have-
Nirodha?
No, I think it was, everything was very beautifully explained, yeah. And
Say
nobody
something
can do
about
it
it.
for you, you have to do it yourself. And you only have to see what is right and wrong for you. You have the Buddha's teaching as a guidance, but sometimes we can argue about many things. In the end, you have to live with yourself, and all I say is try to do your best, especially in our times.
Okay, I'll ask a question. Have you been able to successfully build up some affection for difficult people? Tips? Any tips?
Any tips? Any tips?
Yes.
Eh,
Sorry.
Any
you-
tips?
you-
Any tips is not to take anyone seriously.
Isn't it?
Not to take anyone seriously. Not to take your, yeah.
Actually, you have to have compassion for the other person because they're digging their own graves. Because, as you know, with karma, and very often it can happen in a very short time. So you actually have this, not saying that something is wrong is right, but you see what the consequences are and will be, sometimes very quickly, yeah.
This brings us to maybe the last topic that we haven't addressed, and this is about the non-self. Yeah? And this is where it is very helpful. When if it is a difficult person, or if you are the difficult person, sometimes we know, right, we are the difficult person in the situation, whatever it is, it applies both ways. How do you understand the non-self? So this is where it is really important, understanding the conditionality. Who are you right now, or who this other person is, the sum total of what has gone before, both this life and previous lives. Yeah, that is the Buddhist understanding of non-self. There is not self, but a bunch of conditionality. That's who we are. But we are very good at taking all the good things and become proud. I am so intelligent, I am so this, and I can do that. But that's also conditioned. Blaming ourselves for our weaknesses or the other person. All conditioned. Yeah? All conditioned by the past. But it is not talking about fatalism though. Yeah? We are conditioned, but with mindfulness, we can make choices. So we have a will. Yeah? Because this is where the non-self and things gets very confusing. Because you feel a sense of agency inside of you. I decided to come for this talk and I can get up and go anytime I like. You feel like that, right? But your choice is conditioned. Conditioned, you have conditioning for doing both. Right? You can do either choose to kill or not to kill. You can choose to either get up right this moment, walk out of the door, or to stay seated. Whatever it is, your choice, there is conditioning for all of those things. But when you have mindfulness, the right kind of mindfulness, that sort of informs you what's the right thing to do and sort of bias your mind towards that, whatever it is. So if you actually develop mindfulness towards something else, valued something else, or whatever you have valued, whatever views that you have taken up, whatever you've been doing again and again, all of those things will condition what you're going to do. Make sense? Yeah, but when you do that, it feels like you did it. but really you came from that conditioning. So understanding that. So when you apply that to this difficult person, why are they being difficult? Do you think anybody in their right mind want to be difficult? Because being a difficult person is difficult for themselves. We know that because when we have been difficult, we are not all really good people, right? We have been difficult people at some point in our life to somebody. We know how difficult it is to be a difficult person. You have to have consequences from others and yourself as well. But why are they being difficult and doing all these things that are harmful and hurtful or difficult for the people? They can't help themselves. They don't have enough mindfulness. We think that they should know. They are a human being, intelligent, blah, blah, blah. How can they do this stupid thing? But not enough mindfulness, and also wrong view. Wrong view is actually more important than mindfulness. Even the mindfulness itself isn't enough. View is what underlies the mindfulness. Even that is when you have realized at times you have very mindfully, very clearly, fully knowing I shouldn't be doing this, go right ahead and do it. Especially as practitioners, we feel very guilty about it because you know very well this is not to be done. I shouldn't do it, but you go right ahead and do it fully mindful. You are very aware of what you're doing, all of that, but you can't help yourself. And that is where you can see how powerful the wrong view is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the times wrong view actually guides you. So these are the places where you can see the conditional nature. Yeah, the views drive you. Your mindfulness is necessary. So there are many things that goes together for what is happening. So when we see that in the other person, at the very least we can build up some compassion for the person. Maybe affection might be hard if it is a really difficult person, but without knowing the right thing, not having right mindfulness, having lots of wrong views, they're doing these things that are really harming them, harming others, very bad, whatever. But they are the owners of their karma. They will have to go through the karmic consequences. Yet, you feel sorry because they don't know, right? They don't have the teachings, they don't have the power of the mind, they haven't meditated or whatever it is. So they are where they're at and doing these wrong things. But there is no excuse because they are still intentional actions. Even coming from wrong view, it's still intentional actions. This is how unfair samsara seems, yeah? Samsara seems very unfair. So when you see that, you get that compassion towards these people. So that is fully based on the concept of non-self. There is nobody there, a bunch of conditions driven by lack of mindfulness and wrong view or right view or with mindfulness, whatever it is. Yeah, this is who we are. So the spiritual path is about slowly increasing our mindfulness and building up right view, taking on board a lot of the right view. So those two things will drive you into doing the right kind of actions much more. When you do the right kind of actions by body and speech, the mind is also taken care of. Or rather, the mind will also trigger the words and the actions. So they go together, but as long as you gently move from being in the wrong side towards the right side, gradually, you will head in a different direction. So this is how we change it. So it's not fatalism or determinism, because what happened in the past doesn't mean you have to be only this way. With mindfulness and taking on right view, this is where the conditioning is so helpful, the teachings are so helpful. When that happens, you can change the course of direction. Otherwise, enlightenment is not possible, right? But we know enlightenment is possible. Getting out of this problem is possible. We are not stuck. So again, putting in the right causes and right conditioning, we can get out of this place. So this is how we prepare for a good death, right? That was the other topic. How to prepare for your good death is all of these things, right? Taking care of your generosity, taking care of your virtue, being a good person, building up this mindfulness, taking on board the path, being prepared, yeah, for all of these things, then you're kind of ready to die. Then you have done your very best for this life. So these are some of the things we We have gone way over time, by the way. Sorry, but there are many topics. Did anybody feel missed out with their questions? You probably addressed more than that, right? That's the way. Would you like to add some more?
No, it's just the statement going against the stream is so very powerful and loaded, you know. You have to have the guts and also the ability to go against the stream. Small steps first before you take big ones, you know. Because the teaching can be so very clear to us, but we actually have to internalize it, we have to be it, not just talk about it, you know. That is the most difficult. We don't see it, you know, we are blinded by ignorance and fettered by craving is a famous statement. So we have to be friends together and listen to beautiful Dharma talks, and again, each time we see something a little bit extra, yeah. Thank you.
And it's nice to reflect all of this, what we said, with that story, you know, with that snake, the bad snake. Sometimes we are like that bad snake, right? Going through life, going through difficulty. Sometimes feel like we've done a whole entire life of not doing the right thing, which is not really true, but that's how sometimes we feel. But there comes a point, suddenly, something hits, something clicks, and you realize, what am I doing? You know, and the idea of death and all those comes. But, you know, sometimes pride stops us, but good on that bad snake, right? To even putting all the disguise and everything, to still go, listen, take them on board, you know, try it out and keep to the determination. Because just now before, in case there was no topic, which has never happened, I always have something in mind. I was looking at a sutta. This one I can tell the reference because I just looked up. It's in Numerical Discourses, book number 4, sutta number 31. I can't remember the name of the sutta, but that's actually the reference for it. Talks about 4 things that are beneficial. So living in a conducive locality is a blessing. So in order to do the right thing, it's because conditioning, right? We are getting conditioned, so if you are in the wrong kind of place, it's a problem. And then associating the good people, so having the right good people to associate, because these 2 things condition us, so very big blessing. And resolution, the right kind of resolution is very important. So once you hear good teachings, once you realize what's going wrong or what you need to do, you have to also make some resolutions to help ourselves to do the right thing. Otherwise it's very hard because habit takes over. And what was the 4th thing? I have forgotten. It is actually in my pocket. Let me take it in my pocket.
You must have find it.
No. Let me just read the verse. When a person dwells in a suitable locality and makes friends with the noble ones, when he has formed right resolutions and done deeds of merit in the past, so good merit from the past, gain, riches, fame and reputation along with happiness occur to him. Anyway, so the last one is also about the merit which we spoke about, so it's what we do right now, but also what we have done before is who we are now. So that is that conditionality, who we are as a person, why we are. And look, you know, this is not a Buddhist country, right? A lot of you some of you may have not been born as Buddhists or anything like that, or these teachings. You're coming here, why? You know? Also because of the past that you have inclined to these kinds of stuff. Whether you call it merit or not, whatever it is, you know, got the conditions. So,
but also to have the compassion, because we can say, not to say, serves you right, I know you're receiving what you have done wrong in the past, you know. This is not the way to deal with it. And we sometimes deep down in our mind, once in a while, it happens, yeah. So that's why there's an unconditional forgiveness, forgiving others, and also forgiving ourselves from time to time. Especially, you know, we all have done things which at that time we thought was correct. 10 years later, I wish I wouldn't have done it, you know, so on and on. So again, have that kind of compassion for yourself, and not, you know, beat yourself up is all wrong, you know. Keep a healthy mind. And
This is where I have a little bit of a contradiction with Ajahn Brahm's statement about karma will get the bastards. Yeah, you don't have to do anything. The karma will get the. That idea of saying just the bastard is there is a yes, you deserve it. You know, I don't have to do anything. You will suffer in the future. You sort of feel good about it. It's a good statement for when you are about to go and do something bad, right? Just to stop yourself, not taking revenge.
Before you kill somebody.
So at least you feel like that. Yeah. So that's okay for that. But that's not good enough, right? As a practitioner, that's not good enough. We have to apply the idea of non-self, the conditionality, and actually build up compassion for the person. That's the Buddha's instruction. It comes in Removing Resentment Sutta in Anguttara Nikaya, book number 5, Sutta number, I can't remember, 261 or something, where he says, building up compassion is the right response for these people, not saying, you deserve your karma.
But it can help for some.
Exactly.
At times it can is
Absolutely.
important for some people in their misery, that gives them a kind of a.
Yes. It is important, it is necessary in real life, but I'm just saying to try to go for the next level when we can after that. Anyway, any questions, comments?
I have
Yes?
a quick one, if that's okay. When you say you take an inventory at the end of the day and you see the good things that you've done, how do you not take that to the ego level? Oh, so good.
Conditionality.
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Yeah.
Think about it. It's also not yourself, right? That's why I said good things we take on board, bad things we beat ourselves up. Good and bad, everything was conditioned, and that's why you did that. So you can remember not to get the ego, but instead you have a lot of joy saying, wow, I had the opportunity, I did that, and that's great. Okay. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also to keep it to yourself. You don't put it on the internet for right? Which some people do, yes.
This is how we are brought up, right? We're saying don't let your nose get get that pride of being a good person, just forget about it. But that's wrong also. It's not the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha says it's important to recollect your goodness. The Pali word is chaganusati. We are remembering your chaga, it's your generosity. It's a very important, really important aspect. To straighten our minds. That's the whole point. Yeah, we need a straight mind to be able to meditate.
Sometimes it's remembering not big things,
Small
It's
things.
the little things the little things.
Yeah.
Like I didn't say something that I could have said. Those are the ones that you feel really good about.
Yeah.
That's good.
Or shared something that you had somebody.
It's all coming back to the middle way, Don't drown in your misery and don't drown in your flapping your wings, but the middle way, Yes. And which we don't seem to be able to exist because otherwise it's so boring,
The good things you do, if you remember them, does it help you when you're going to die?
Absolutely.
Yes.
You will be getting good thoughts.
Yes, because you die happy knowing that you've done the best. This is what the Buddha says very beautifully, like when you've done good things, it's like a mountain of good deeds. And when a person, they sit down in their hut or in their house or will lie down, these beautiful merits, the shadow overlaps them beautifully. So like that, all of those come, and as you're passing away, it's actually nice way to, this is recommended.
Yeah. And even if your memory is gone, you get Alzheimer's and all that, your good things are still coming to protect you when you die.
At the end,
Yes.
Dr. Nkong might know this better, but I've heard that even people who had these kinds of things, it's more the chemistry of the brain, but at the time the death is a process. And as you are dying and as the mind is actually separating from its very close connection with the brain, the effects of the brain chemicals are no longer there and your mind becomes clear again. And at that time, a lot of the good things will come, and especially if you practiced like that. From now, before your mind gets all this, forgetfulness, Alzheimer's or whatever, before that, if you've already done this, and it is close to that, it will just come back as you're passing away. So don't worry. There's another question.
Everyone, is it like Chuddhisita, like when you're about to die, like?
Yeah, Chuddhisita and Patisandhichitta are not from the suttas.
What is it?
Yeah, the last moment. Who has heard the story about the merchant, or who has not heard the story about? Oh, you heard that? Okay, do you have time for a joke?
Yeah.
The joke to explain. Some have heard already. Never mind. So this is from Ajahn Brahm.
Of course.
I'm conditioned, right? I don't take credit. I've just been brainwashed by him. So there was this man who owned a shop, businessman. So some people, not men, and some people who are very much into their business, 7 days the shop is open. That's their life, right? They spend all their day working, earning money. That's their life. So he was getting old. And his wife was telling him, darling, now we are getting on with our age. You've done well in your life, earned a lot of money, take care of all of us, and done really well, given us everything. But you need to also think about our next life. After we die, we might be born again. It's also time that we think about that, investing a little bit on about how about you go to the monastery at least on the full moon day and listen to a sermon and give a donation, at least, so do some good deed, because otherwise I was always only busy with working. So the man also thought, yes, my wife is right for a change. She's actually right. She's got a point, and it's about my life, my next life. This is a good point. I can't take my money and everything with me. All right. So he goes. So he listens to a few sermons. He put a donation. And one of the days he heard the monk or the nun who was giving the sermon saying, all of these things is not that important, but the last thought moment is important. So he lent the ear, because that's the whole point he was going. Because he wanted to get a good life. He heard, last thought moment is what matters. If you remember Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha in your last thought moment, all good, you'll have a good rebirth. Then the man thought, I can figure this out. I know what to do. No need to go and listen to all these boring, long sermons at night, and more importantly, give donations to these monks nuns who are already fat and have plenty to eat. Right? And he decides, okay, I'll figure out a way. He had 3 sons. So he was sure when he's dying, on his deathbed, his family would be there. So he renamed his sons Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. No way that he can forget now, right? Because they're there now. So, okay, time went by, and he was now in his deathbed, where everything is going according to his plan, of course. And so he's lying there, so his sons are there, daughter-in-laws are there, wife is there, everybody's there. So he's also lying there, ready to die, looking at Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. All planned, working, now going to have a good rebirth, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And then suddenly goes, if Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha is here, who's binding the shop?
Then he died.
Making a good point, right? Because how you inclined your mind, what has been important to you is what's going to come. You have no control over your last moment. So people think they can be smart and they can control their last thought moment. But you can't control the last thought moment. That's the point of this joke. But it's not really a joke. It's a really important point. Okay. All right. Thank you all for
Thank you.
being here.